Have you ever wondered what happens when someone unexpected shows up at a luxurious event? See what happened here. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Ethan Mitchell held the ivory-colored envelope in his trembling hands. The paper was thick, expensive, with a touch of elegance that made his stomach churn. He knew what it was before he even opened it. An invitation to Sophia's wedding, his ex-fiancée. Ethan took a deep breath, feeling the crisp October air fill his lungs as he leaned against the porch of his Victorian home. The property, once full of promises of a shared future, now felt empty, echoing with memories of lost laughter and broken dreams. With hesitant fingers, he opened the envelope, his eyes scanning the elegantly printed words. Sophia Elizabeth Carter and James Andrew Thompson invite you to celebrate their love. The words seemed to mock him, each letter a sharp reminder of what he had lost. It had been 18 months since Sophia left, claiming that Ethan was more committed to his career as an architect than to her. 18 months of lonely nights, 18 months of trying to convince himself that he was okay. But now, holding the tangible proof that Sophia had moved on, Ethan felt himself crumble. He went inside, tossing the invitation onto the coffee table and heading straight to the bar. The whiskey burned down his throat, a liquid fire that did nothing to quell the ache in his chest. Ethan stared out the window, watching the leaves fall from the trees in the yard, a fitting metaphor for how his life seemed to be falling apart. The shrill ring of the phone snapped him out of his dark thoughts. It was his best friend, Lucas. "Hey, man," Lucas's voice came through the speaker. "I just got the invite. How are you handling it?" Ethan sighed, running a hand through his disheveled brown hair. "Honestly, not great. I knew this would happen eventually, but seeing it in print, it's like someone punched me in the gut." "Look," Lucas said, his voice full of concern. "Why don't you come to the bar tonight? Let's grab a few beers, talk. You shouldn't be alone right now." Part of Ethan wanted to refuse, to sink into his solitary misery. But he knew Lucas was right. Staying home brooding over the past wouldn't help anyone. "All right," he agreed reluctantly. "I'll meet you there at 8. When Ethan arrived at O'Malley's, the bar was already packed with the Friday night crowd. The air was thick with the smell of spilled beer and fries, and the sound of laughter and lively conversations filled the space. He spotted Lucas sitting at the bar, 2 beers already waiting. "Hey, you came," Lucas grinned, patting Ethan on the back as he sat down. Ethan just nodded, grabbing the beer and taking a long drink. They talked about work, sports, anything to avoid the subject hanging over them like a dark cloud. That's when she walked in. The door to the bar swung open, letting in a gust of cool autumn air and a woman who immediately caught Ethan's attention. She wasn't conventionally beautiful, not the way Sophia had been, with her perfect blonde hair and flawless makeup. No, this woman was different. Her hair was a mass of copper curls, falling in wild waves around her face. She wore faded jeans and a simple t-shirt, a worn leather jacket thrown over her shoulders. But it was her eyes that captured Ethan, a deep, vibrant green that seemed to hold entire worlds. She moved through the bar with a natural grace, finding an empty spot at the counter not far from where Ethan and Lucas were sitting. Ethan couldn't take his eyes off her, fascinated by the way she interacted with the bartender, her face lighting up with a smile that seemed to brighten the whole place. Lucas followed Ethan's gaze and grinned. "Go talk to her," he encouraged. Ethan shook his head. "I'm not ready for that, man. Besides, I'm taking a sip of her beer. Just moved to town. Thought I'd explore a bit, meet some locals." "Welcome to Wilmington, then," Ethan smiled. "Where did you move from?" "Everywhere and nowhere," she replied enigmatically. Seeing the confusion on Ethan's face, she elaborated. "I grew up in a military family. We moved around a lot. I've spent the last few years traveling on my own, doing odd jobs here and there. decided it was time to put down roots somewhere, and Wilmington seemed like a good place to start. There was something in the way she spoke, a mix of confidence and vulnerability that captivated Ethan. Before he knew it, they were deeply engaged in conversation, talking about everything from their favorite places in the world to their deepest dreams and fears. Hours passed without them noticing, the bar emptying around them. It was only when the bartender announced last call that Ethan realized how much time had passed. "Wow," he said, glancing at his watch in surprise. "I didn't realize it was so late." Olivia smiled, a mischievous glint in her eyes. "Time flies when you're having fun, doesn't it?" Ethan felt his heart race. He didn't want the night to end, didn't want to let Olivia walk out of his life. "Hey," he said, gathering his courage, "I know this might sound crazy, but would you like to go to a wedding with me next weekend?" Olivia's eyebrows shot up in surprise. "A wedding? We just met, Ethan." I know, he said quickly. "It's just that, well, to be completely honest, it's my ex's wedding, and the thought of going alone terrifies me. But talking with you tonight, for the first time in a long time, I felt good, and I'd love to have you there with me." Olivia studied him for a long moment, her green eyes searching his as if she were looking for something. Finally, she smiled. "All right, Ethan, I'll go with you, but on one condition." "Anything," Ethan said, feeling a rush of relief and excitement. "You have to promise me this isn't just about making your ex jealous. If I go, it's because you genuinely want my company. Deal?" Ethan felt a pang of guilt. Initially, part of him had thought exactly that. How great it would be to show up at Sophia's wedding with a beautiful, intriguing woman like Olivia. But talking with her throughout the night, he realized he wanted more than that. He wanted to get to know her better, to explore the connection he felt growing between them. "Deal," he said firmly. "I promise it's not about Sophia. It's about you and me, getting to know each other better." Olivia's smile widened. "Good. Then it's a date." In the days that followed, Ethan found himself thinking about Olivia constantly. They had exchanged numbers that night at the bar and since then had been texting regularly. Each message, each late-night phone conversation, only served to deepen Ethan's fascination with her. Olivia was unlike anyone he had ever met. She had a unique perspective on life, shaped by her many travels and experiences. She spoke passionately about the people she had met, the cultures she had experienced, and more than that, she listened to Ethan with an intensity that made him feel truly seen for the first time in a long time. As the wedding day approached, Ethan found himself surprised to realize that he was no longer anxious about seeing Sophia. Instead, he was excited about the prospect of spending the day with Olivia. On the morning of the wedding, Ethan adjusted his bow tie in the mirror, his stomach fluttering with butterflies. It wasn't nerves about the wedding, he realized, but anticipation of seeing Olivia. They had agreed to meet at the church, and Ethan could hardly wait to see her. When he arrived at the church, his eyes immediately searched for Olivia among the crowd of well-dressed guests. For a moment, he feared she had changed her mind, that she wouldn't show. Then he saw her, and his heart stopped. Olivia was stunning in an emerald green dress that perfectly matched her eyes. Her red hair was swept up into an elegant bun, with a few loose curls framing her face. She smiled when she saw him, and Ethan felt as if the entire world had disappeared, leaving just the two of them. "Wow," he said when he reached her. "You look incredible." Olivia blushed slightly, a shy smile playing on her lips. "You don't look too bad yourself, Mr. Mitchell." They walked into the church together, and Ethan felt a surge of pride as he noticed the admiring glances Olivia attracted. But more than that, he felt grateful to have her by his side. The ceremony was beautiful, of course. Sophia was radiant in her wedding gown, and her new husband, James, looked at her with adoration. Ethan had expected to feel a pang of jealousy, of regret. Instead, all he felt was a sense of closure. At the reception, Ethan and Olivia danced, laughed, and mingled with the other guests. Ethan was impressed by how effortlessly Olivia blended in, her captivating personality charming everyone she met. It was during a slow dance that Sophia approached them. Ethan felt Olivia tense in his arms, but he gave her a gentle squeeze, reassuring her. "Ethan," Sophia smiled, her blue eyes sparkling with happiness. "I'm so glad you came." "Wouldn't have missed it," Ethan replied sincerely. "Sophia, this is Olivia." Sophia looked at Olivia with curiosity. "It's nice to meet you, Olivia. I hope you're enjoying the party." "You look beautiful," Olivia replied with a genuine smile. "Congratulations on your wedding." There was a moment of silence, years of unspoken history hanging between them. Then Sophia smiled again, a smile of understanding, and perhaps a touch of regret. "Well, enjoy the rest of the night," she said before turning to greet other guests. Ethan let out a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. Olivia looked at him with concern. "Are you all right?" she asked softly. Ethan thought for a moment, then smiled. "Yeah," he said, surprised to realize it was true. "Actually, I'm great." As the night wore on, Ethan found himself more and more enchanted by Olivia. She made him laugh in a way he hadn't laughed in years, and there were moments when he caught her gaze and felt a connection that went beyond words. When the reception finally ended, they stepped out into the cool autumn night. The stars twinkled overhead, and a gentle breeze rustled the leaves of the trees. "So," Olivia said, turning to him with a smile. "How was it? Not as bad as you thought, huh?" Ethan shook his head, smiling. "No, it wasn't. In fact, it was wonderful. Thanks to you." Olivia blushed, looking away. "I didn't do anything, Ethan. I just was myself." Ethan gently touched Olivia's chin, guiding her gaze back to him. "You did a lot more than you realize, Olivia. You showed me that there's life after heartbreak, that it's possible to feel this connection again." Olivia's eyes shimmered in the moonlight, a mixture of emotion and uncertainty dancing in their green depths. "Ethan, Before she could finish, Ethan leaned in and kissed her softly. It was a tender kiss, full of promise and possibility. When they pulled apart, both were breathless. "Wow," Olivia whispered, a slow smile spreading across her face. Ethan smiled back, feeling his heart lighter than it had in years. "I know this might sound crazy," he said, "but I really want to see where this could go. What do you say to a real date? No weddings, no exes, just the two of us?" Olivia pretended to think for a moment, her eyes sparkling with amusement. I don't know. Do you think you can top this first date? I mean, a wedding is a pretty tough act to follow." Ethan laughed, pulling her closer. "Well, I might not have a wedding planned for our next date, but I promise it'll be just as memorable." "In that case," Olivia smiled, "I'd love to." They walked hand in hand to Ethan's car, the night around them buzzing with possibilities. As he drove Olivia home, Ethan couldn't help but think about how unpredictable life was. He had gone to the wedding expecting it to be a night of regrets and heartbreak. Instead, it had become the beginning of something new and exciting. In the days that followed, Ethan and Olivia became inseparable. Their dates ranged from fancy dinners to impromptu picnics on the beach. Ethan loved Olivia's spontaneity, the way she challenged him to step out of his comfort zone. One Sunday afternoon, about a month after the wedding, they were walking along the Wilmington boardwalk. The air was cool and damp, heavy with the promise of rain, but neither of them minded. "So," Olivia said, swinging their intertwined hands, You mentioned you're an architect. How did you end up in that career? Ethan smiled, remembering. When I was a kid, I was obsessed with Lego. I'd spend hours building entire cities in my room. My parents thought I'd outgrow it, but as I got older, my passion only grew. I started getting interested in design, in how buildings shape communities. Architecture just seemed like the natural path to follow. Olivia looked at him with admiration. That's amazing, Ethan. You must really love what you do. I do, he confirmed. But what about you? You mentioned you did odd jobs, but you never told me what you really want to do. Olivia was quiet for a moment, her eyes fixed on the horizon. Honestly, I've always wanted to be a writer. I've spent years traveling, collecting stories, experiences. I have notebooks full of ideas for novels, short stories. But I've always been afraid to take the leap, you know? What if I'm not good enough? Ethan stopped, turning to face her. Hey, he said softly, I'm sure you're amazing. Your stories, your experiences, they're unique. The world needs to hear them. Olivia's eyes filled with unshed tears. Do you really think that? I know it, Ethan said firmly. Look, how about we make a deal? I'll help you start your book and you help me with my next big architecture project. We can be each other's support team. Olivia's face lit up with a radiant smile. I'd love that, she said, standing on tiptoe to kiss him. In that moment, the clouds finally opened up, spilling a soft rain over them. But instead of running for cover, Ethan and Olivia laughed, spinning in the middle of the downpour, their faces turned toward the sky. As the months passed, Ethan and Olivia's relationship continued to blossom. They faced challenges, of course. Olivia's fear of commitment, a result of a lifetime of constant movement, and Ethan's tendency to bury himself in work when stressed. But together, they learned to overcome these obstacles, growing stronger each day. Olivia began working seriously on her novel, often waking up before dawn to write before heading to her part-time job at a local bookstore. Ethan supported her unconditionally, reading each chapter with enthusiasm and offering honest feedback. For her part, Olivia became Ethan's rock as he embarked on his most ambitious project yet, the redesign of Wilmington's historic downtown. She listened to him talk about his plans for hours, offering fresh perspectives when he got stuck on details. One night, nearly a year after they met, Ethan took Olivia out for a special dinner. He had been nervous throughout the meal, constantly fidgeting with something in his pocket. Finally, as they walked along the beach after dinner, Ethan stopped, turning to Olivia with a determined look. Liv, he began, using the affectionate nickname he had adopted for her. This past year has been the happiest of my life. You've taught me so much. About love, about life, about myself. I can't even imagine my life without you now. Olivia's eyes widened as Ethan dropped to one knee in the sand, pulling a small velvet box from his pocket. Olivia Rose Thompson, he said, his voice trembling slightly with emotion. Would you do me the honor of marrying me? Olivia was silent for a moment, tears streaming down her cheeks. For a terrible second, Ethan feared she would say no. Then, she smiled, a smile so bright it rivaled the sunset behind them. Yes, she whispered. Then louder, yes, yes, 1,000 times yes. Ethan slid the ring onto her finger, a delicate gold band with a single emerald, perfectly matching Olivia's eyes, before standing and twirling her in his arms, both of them laughing with pure joy. As they kissed, the sun finally dipped below the horizon, and Ethan marveled at how surprising life could be. A year ago, he had been heartbroken, dreading Sophia's wedding. Now he was engaged to the most incredible woman he had ever met, ready to start a new chapter of his life. Planning the wedding was an adventure in itself. Olivia, with her free spirit, wanted something unconventional, while Ethan's family pushed for a traditional ceremony. In the end, they reached a compromise, a small beach ceremony, followed by a more formal reception for family and friends. In the months leading up to the big day, Ethan and Olivia faced their own personal challenges. Olivia's book was picked up by a publisher, leading to long hours of editing and revisions. Ethan, meanwhile, was in the middle of his downtown redesign project, often working late into the night. There were moments of stress and arguments, of course. Olivia sometimes felt neglected when Ethan got caught up in his work, while Ethan occasionally resented how easily Olivia could get lost in her world of fiction. But through open communication and compromise, they always found their way back to each other. Finally, the wedding day arrived. The beach was beautifully decorated with wild flowers and paper lanterns. Olivia walked down the sand in a simple, elegant dress, her bare feet and red hair loose in the wind. Ethan, waiting at the end of the makeshift aisle, felt his heart stop when he saw her. When Olivia reached him, Ethan took her hands in his, marveling at how perfectly they fit together. "We're really doing this," Olivia whispered, her eyes shining with emotion. "Yes, we are," Ethan replied with a smile. "And I couldn't be happier." The ceremony was brief, but filled with love and laughter. They exchanged vows they had written, each word a promise of love, respect, and partnership. When the officiant pronounced them husband and wife, the small congregation of friends and family erupted in applause. The reception that followed was a perfect blend of elegance and laid-back fun, reflecting the couple's personalities. Ethan and Olivia danced, laughed, and celebrated with their loved ones until the early hours of the morning. As the sun began to rise over the ocean, Ethan and Olivia snuck away from the party, walking hand in hand along the beach. "So, Mrs. Mitchell," Ethan smiled, still amazed to be able to call her that. "How do you feel?" Olivia stopped, turning to face him. Her green eyes were filled with love and happiness. "Honestly, I feel like I'm home. For the first time in my life, I really feel at home." Ethan pulled her close, kissing her softly. "Welcome home, then," he murmured against her lips. As they stood there, wrapped in each other's arms with the new day dawning around them, Ethan reflected on the journey that had brought them here. From a wedding invitation he had dreaded, to this moment of pure happiness. Life truly had a way of surprising him. He didn't know what the future held for them. Challenges, joys, maybe even a family one day. But one thing he was certain of. With Olivia by his side, he was ready for anything. And so, hand in hand, Ethan and Olivia walked toward the rising sun, ready to begin the next chapter of their story together. A story of love, growth, and the unexpected beauty that can come from life's most difficult moments. In the years that followed, Ethan and Olivia faced the ups and downs of married life with grace and determination. Professional success came for both. Ethan's downtown redesign project was critically acclaimed, while Olivia's debut novel became a surprise bestseller. But with success came new challenges. Ethan's long hours at the office and Olivia's book tours sometimes kept them apart for weeks. They learned to cherish their time together, creating small rituals to stay connected. Nightly video calls when they were apart. Sunday morning breakfasts when they were home. 3 years after their wedding, Olivia discovered she was pregnant. The news was met with a mix of joy and apprehension. Neither of them felt fully prepared for parenthood, but they were eager to face this new challenge together. The pregnancy wasn't easy. Olivia suffered from severe morning sickness in the early months, and later was put on bed rest due to complications. Ethan found himself balancing his demanding work with caring for his wife. It was a stressful few months, but it also brought them closer in ways they hadn't expected. Finally, on a rainy spring night, their daughter was born. They named her Lily, after the wild flowers that had decorated their beach wedding. Holding their newborn daughter, Ethan and Olivia looked at each other, exhausted but elated. "She's perfect," Ethan whispered, tears in his eyes. Olivia smiled, tired, but radiant. She is. We did it, Ethan. We really did it. Parenthood brought a new dimension to their relationship. Sleepless nights, dirty diapers, and first smiles. Every new experience bonded them further. They discovered strength they didn't know they had, patience they didn't know they could muster. When Lily was 2 years old, Ethan received a job offer in New York City, the chance to work at a prestigious architecture firm, designing skyscrapers instead of historic buildings. It was an incredible opportunity, but it would mean leaving Wilmington, the city that had become their home. The decision wasn't easy. Olivia loved Wilmington, the community they had built there, but she also knew how much this opportunity meant to Ethan. After many discussions, some tears, and a lot of reflection, they decided to make the move. It was a fresh start, full of challenges and adjustments. The fast pace of New York was a shock after the relatively laid-back life in Wilmington. But together, they made it work. Olivia found inspiration in the energy of the city, starting her second novel, a love story set in New York. Ethan thrived in his new job, his innovative ideas quickly making him a rising star at the firm. Lily grew up as a true New Yorker, loving the city's parks and subway rides with her parents. By the age of 5, she was a perfect blend of both of them, Olivia's green eyes, Ethan's smile, and an insatiable curiosity that kept them constantly on their toes. It was during their 6th wedding anniversary that they received news that would once again change their lives. Olivia was pregnant again, this time with twins. The news was met with a mix of joy and panic. How would they manage 3 kids in the bustling city of New York? The following months were a whirlwind of preparations. Ethan worked tirelessly to secure a promotion that would allow them to move into a larger apartment. Olivia balanced her writing with frequent doctor's appointments, determined to keep her career on track despite the high-risk pregnancy. Lily, now nearly 6 years old, was thrilled at the idea of being a big sister. She spent hours talking to her mom's belly, telling stories to her unborn siblings. It was during the 7th month of pregnancy that the unexpected happened. Ethan received a call in the middle of an important meeting. Olivia had gone into premature labor. He rushed to the hospital, his heart pounding in his chest, vividly remembering Lily's birth and praying that everything would go well this time, too. The next 12 hours were the longest of Ethan's life. Olivia underwent an emergency C-section, and the twins, a boy and a girl, were born 7 weeks early. They were tiny and fragile, immediately taken to the neonatal ICU. Ethan found himself torn between wanting to be by Olivia's side, who was recovering from surgery, and needing to be with their newborns. It was Olivia, even exhausted and in pain, who encouraged him. "Go be with them, love," she said softly. "They need to know they're not alone." The following days were a blur of hospital visits, sleepless nights, and constant worry. Ethan and Olivia named the twins Emma and Noah, and spent every free moment by their incubators, singing softly and reading stories that Olivia had written especially for them. Lily, cared for by her grandparents who had come from Wilmington to help, showed a surprising maturity for her age. She drew pictures for her siblings and helped pick out tiny outfits for when they could finally come home. After 4 agonizing weeks, Emma and Noah were finally discharged from the hospital. The apartment that once seemed spacious suddenly felt cramped with 5 people, but Ethan and Olivia barely noticed the tight quarters. They were too busy marveling at their children, grateful to have them home and healthy. Life with 3 kids was chaotic, exhausting, and absolutely wonderful. Ethan cut back his hours at work, determined to be more present for his family. Olivia found inspiration in her new reality, starting to write a series of children's books based on Lily and the twins' adventures. As the years passed, Ethan and Olivia faced new challenges and celebrated new milestones. They watched Lily start school, proud of her confidence and kindness. They saw Emma and Noah grow, So different, yet so close. Emma, the dreamy artist, and Noah, the little scientist always asking questions. On their 10th wedding anniversary, Ethan surprised Olivia with a trip back to Wilmington. They walked along the beach where they had gotten married, this time with 3 children running ahead of them. "Did you ever imagine we'd be here 10 years ago?" Olivia asked, intertwining her fingers with Ethan's. Ethan smiled, watching Lily help the twins build a sandcastle. "Honestly? No. But I wouldn't change a thing." Olivia rested her head on his shoulder. "Neither would I. Every challenge, every hard moment, it all brought us here. And here is exactly where I want to be." That night, after the kids had fallen asleep, Ethan and Olivia sat on the hotel balcony, looking out at the ocean. The moonlight danced on the waves, creating an almost magical scene. "You know," Ethan said thoughtfully, "sometimes I still can't believe how all of this started. A wedding invitation I dreaded, a chance meeting at a bar." Olivia smiled, remembering. "Fate works in mysterious ways, doesn't it?" "Or maybe it's us," Ethan replied, turning to look into her eyes. "Maybe we make our own stories, our own chances." Olivia considered this for a moment. "I think you're right. We chose each other that night, and we've kept choosing each other every day since." Ethan leaned in, kissing her softly. "And I'd choose you again, every day, for 1,000 more years." As they sat there, reminiscing about the past and dreaming about the future, Ethan thought about all the twists and turns life had thrown their way. Sophia's wedding, which had once seemed like the end of his world, was now just a distant memory, the catalyst that had led him to Olivia and the life they had built together. He thought about Lily, Emma, and Noah, sleeping peacefully in the next room, each of them a little miracle. He thought about all the sleepless nights, the worries, the unexpected joys that parenthood had brought. And he thought about Olivia, his partner, his best friend, his love, the woman who challenged him, inspired him, and loved him unconditionally. The woman who had turned a moment of despair into a life of happiness. "What are you thinking about?" Olivia asked softly, noticing his distant look. Ethan smiled, pulling her closer. "I'm thinking about how grateful I am. For you, for our kids, for our life. I'm thinking about how I can't wait to see what the next 10 years will bring us." Olivia smiled back, her eyes shining with love and anticipation. "Well, Mr. Mitchell, whatever it is, we'll face it together, just like we always have." And so, under the starry Wilmington sky, Ethan and Olivia sealed that promise with a kiss. It was a kiss that spoke of enduring love, unwavering partnership, of a story that continued to be written, page by page, day by day. They didn't know what the future held. More challenges, more joys, more surprises, no doubt. But they knew that as long as they were together, they could face anything. Because in the end, that's what their story had always been about. Not just finding love, but choosing love, every day, no matter what. And so, with the sound of the waves in the background and the warmth of each other, Ethan and Olivia prepared for the next chapter of their love story. A story that began with an unexpected wedding invitation and continued to surprise them with every step of the way. A story of love, family, growth, and the beauty that can be found in life's unexpected twists and turns. As the night wore on, Ethan and Olivia stayed on the balcony, reminiscing about memories and making plans for the future. They talked about the dreams they had for their children, the places they still wanted to visit together, the books Olivia wanted to write, and the buildings Ethan hoped to design. As the sky began to lighten with the first signs of dawn, they finally decided to turn in. Silently, they opened the door to the children's room, watching their kids sleep peacefully. Lily was curled up in her bed, a book still open by her side. Emma and Noah were in their respective beds, but somehow they had managed to hold hands across the space between them, even in sleep. Ethan felt his heart swell with love as he took in the scene. He turned to Olivia, seeing the same emotions reflected in her eyes. "We did this," he whispered, awestruck. "We created this amazing family." Olivia nodded, tears of happiness shimmering in her eyes. "Yes, we did. And we'll keep doing it, every day." They closed the door softly and went to their own room. As they got ready for bed, exhausted but happy after a night of reflection and planning, Ethan couldn't help but think about how much his life had changed. 10 years ago, he had been alone in his Wilmington apartment, dreading his ex-fiancee's wedding. Now, he was here, married to the most incredible woman he had ever known, the father of 3 wonderful children, living a life that exceeded his wildest dreams. When they finally climbed into bed, Ethan pulled Olivia close, breathing in the familiar scent of her lavender shampoo. "I love you," he murmured sleepily, "more than words can express." Olivia smiled against his chest. "I love you too. Always and forever." And so, in each other's arms, Ethan and Olivia fell asleep, ready to face whatever life had in store for them. Because they knew that no matter what happened, they had each other. And in the end, that was all that really mattered. As the sun rose over Wilmington, marking the beginning of a new day and symbolically the start of the next chapter of their lives, Ethan and Olivia slept peacefully. Their dreams were filled with possibilities, with love, with family, a reflection of the wonderful life they had built together. And so, their story continues, no longer just theirs, but the story of the entire family they created. A love story that began with an unexpected wedding invitation and blossomed into something more beautiful and meaningful than either of them could have imagined. A story that serves as a reminder that sometimes the best chapters of our lives begin in the most unexpected moments,